Maybe speak English first before claiming that seat, honey. The sentence sliced through the soft boarding chatter like glass. Passengers in business class turned their heads, some amused, some curious, none surprised. Nandi froze halfway through, placing her carry-on above 3A. The air smelled of citrus sanitizer and burnt coffee. Her hand trembled slightly on the overhead latch. "I'm sorry?" she asked, voice calm but colored by the melody of Lagos. The woman across the aisle leaned back, lips curling. "You heard me. That seat's for paying customers." The flight attendant arrived. Crisp uniform. Tight smile. "Ma'am, can I see your ticket?" From the intercom. "Cabin doors closing in 5 minutes." Every word echoed like a countdown to humiliation. Nandi handed over her boarding pass, the paper shaking just enough for everyone to notice. The attendant scanned it hesitation, suspicion, then looked up with performative doubt. "This is business class." "Yes," Nandi replied softly. "That's where I belong." No one spoke. The engines hummed low, like they too were holding their breath. And in that fragile silence, her accent became the room's permission to doubt her humanity. "Have you ever been treated like you didn't belong just because of the way you speak? Tell me, where in the world are you listening from right now? Lagos? New York? Manila? London? If stories about dignity and voice matter to you, make sure you subscribe and join our community, because this one will stay with you." All right, let's go back to that cabin, where silence started to feel heavier than the storm outside. The attendant kept holding Nandi's boarding pass as if it might confess to a crime if squeezed long enough. The handheld scanner beeped. She frowned, flipped the paper, scanned again, performative diligence. "Business class?" she repeated, slower now, as if teaching a child. "Did you receive an upgrade at the gate?" "No," Nandi said. "I purchased it." Across the aisle, the woman who'd thrown the first insult shrugged into her seatbelt with triumphant efficiency. "Probably used miles from someone else's account," she said, to no one and everyone. A man in 2C closed his laptop and spoke without looking up. "We pay for quiet up here," he said. "Some people don't understand that." The words were tidy, expensive. Air washed through the vents with minty cold. The intercom coughed to life. Ground crew clear, boarding continuing. Somewhere behind them, a bin slammed. A barista bitter smell of coffee slipped forward from the galley. Nandi set her carry-on down by her feet and eased the zipper open just enough to breathe. The polished edge of her MacBook flashed. On the aluminum lid, a small decal, a globe with 3 interlocking speech marks, and the words Globalcom International caught the overhead light. The attendant noticed and didn't. "Ma'am, do you have any proof of payment besides this printout?" "It's a mobile ticket," Nandi said. She lifted her phone. The screen glowed with the airline's app, QR code pulsing like a heartbeat. Her other hand accidentally nudged the lanyard in the bag's mouth. A metal edge winked. A photo ID badge, corporate and handsome. The way companies make identity into jewelry. The attendant's smile barely flexed. "Anyone can print a logo," she said, even though nothing on the screen was printed. She glanced down the cabin, scouting for allies, rules, reasons. A little boy in 4A tugged his mother's sleeve. "Why is she being scolded?" he whispered, loud as innocence. His mother smoothed his hair. "Shh." Then, after a beat, quieter, because grown-ups forget how to listen. Nandi met the mother's eyes. The woman gave a small, apologetic nod. Nandi wanted to pocket like a charm. "Look," the man in 2C said, irritation warming. It felt personal in her skin. Nandi inhaled. Lagos was still there in the way her vowels held each other a fraction of a second longer, in the music at the end of certain words. She placed her tone carefully on the tray table like a fragile cup. "My confirmation number is right here." She angled the phone. The attendant leaned in, blinked, adjusted her posture, but not her doubt. "Sometimes the system shows business even if the payment fails later," the attendant said. "It's rare, but it happens." "It didn't fail." Nandi could feel the thread in her voice. pulling tight. She loosened it with breath. "Voice as bridge," her mother would say. "You build with syllables. You don't swing them like hammers." Behind them, boarding slowed to a trickle of rolling wheels and apology smiles. A flight attendant from economy peered in, took the temperature from faces, retreated. "Do you work?" the woman across the aisle asked. "A sugar knife. I mean, where?" Nandi turned her head slowly, not giving the other woman the gift of speed. "Yes." "What?" "Field? Communication." The woman smirked. "Oh." The attendant straightened, decision arriving. "I'm going to bring a supervisor to verify. It's standard." The phrase, "it's standard," had a pleasant shape, like a scented candle. It suggested order, competence, the safety of rules. But it landed in Nandi's lap with the weight of something else, a polite door closing. "Before you go," Nandi said, keeping her tone level, "please note the name on the ticket." The attendant glanced at the screen again. Nandi Okoye. She tried the syllables the way tourists try street food. Curious, cautious, unwilling to commit. "Sit tight, Miss Okoye." The handheld radio chirped on her shoulder. She pressed it, turned away just enough to keep authority but not privacy. "Hi, it's me, in J passenger, in 3A claiming business. System shows valid, but can I get a supervisor? A, pause. Captain wants pushback, in 8. Copy." She slipped the scanner into her apron, left the boarding pass on the armrest, as if it might wander off. The paper edge kissed Nandi's wrist, a small cut of paper, a smaller cut of dignity. The mother in 4A pretended to look for a magazine. "If you need someone to say we saw your ticket," she offered. "Quiet." "Thank you," Nandi said. The words brushed the air and kept going. She was careful with sound. Even now. Up front, another attendant pulled a curtain halfway, creating a velvet suggestion of exclusivity that did nothing to dam the attention. The man in 2C opened his laptop again in a ceremony of productivity, the way some people pray. Nandi slid her MacBook a fraction farther out, enough to breathe, not enough to declare. Her thumb found the corner of the Globalcom decal and held there. The ID badge shifted. A photo of her neat braids, steadiness in the eyes peered from the shadows of the zipper. The plane hummed like an enormous throat, clearing itself to speak. "Hold your voice like a bridge." Her mother again. A memory woven into air. Let them cross to you, even if they don't deserve the crossing. A bar of light moved down the aisle as the supervisor approached. Crisp steps, a clipboard halo. The attendant returned at her shoulder, posture sharpened by borrowed rank. "Miss Okoye," the supervisor said, tasting the vowels fast and flat. "We'll just take one more look." "Of course." The scanner beeped once more, that same neutral chirp, indifferent witness. The supervisor's eyes flicked to the seat map, to Nandi's face, to the ID badge half hidden in the bag. He registered it, then chose not to. "These seats are intended for our corporate travelers," he said in a tone that meant nothing and everything. "You understand." Nandi felt the sentence try to push her off the bridge of her own voice. She placed another plank. "I am a corporate traveler," she said. Not louder, truer. From the intercom, patient doom. Final bags to the hold. Flight crew prepare for departure. Someone clicked a pen. Someone sighed in a way designed to be heard. The supervisor tucked the scanner under his arm. "I'll check with the captain," he said, already turning. Nandi watched the aisle narrow behind him. The curtain sway back into place. The space around her shrink to the size of her breathing. She pressed her thumb to the decal until the globe warmed under her skin, then let it go. Her voice waited on the bridge. The supervisor's shoes clicked away, each step a verdict. The curtain swung closed behind him, sealing the small, tense air of business class. The attendant lingered like residue. "We'll sort this out," she said, tone professionally sympathetic. "It's probably just a system error." A man's voice from row 2 murmured, "Always is, until it isn't." Nandi folded her hands on her lap, the paper ticket between her fingers growing damp at the edges. Her throat felt full not of words, but of restraint. The intercom cracked overhead. Captain requests immediate resolution before pushback. The sentence hit the cabin like a gavel. The attendant straightened, tapping her radio. Copy that, Captain. 2 minutes. Every head within 3 rows tilted, pretending not to watch, pretending badly. The woman across the aisle whispered to her seatmate, "You know how these things go. They'll check, and she'll end up back in coach." The seatmate chuckled. She should be grateful she got this far. A younger passenger at the rear, a college-age girl with teal headphones around her neck, angled her phone discreetly. The red light blinked. Recording. Nandi noticed. Didn't protest. Maybe truth. Needed witnesses now. The attendant leaned closer. "Ma'am, please understand, we're just doing our job. Try not to make a scene." "I haven't made one," Nandi replied, her tone smooth, measured. The sound of her voice drew eyes again, that accent, rounded vowels shaped by other skies. The attendant's smile stiffened. "Good. Keep it that way." Another passenger, the man from row 2, decided to contribute, his tone performative. "She's being difficult, that's all. Captain should just remove her. You can't hold an entire flight for one person." "Sir," Nandi said gently, "I'm not holding anyone." He shrugged. "You are now." The radio crackled. "Security available if needed," a voice said through static. The attendant exhaled, anxious now that the situation had become official. "Please cooperate, ma'am." "I have," Nandi said, "since I boarded." Behind her, the girl with the phone whispered into her mic. "There's this lady being accused of sitting in the wrong seat. She's super calm, though. They're calling the captain." The viewer count on her TikTok feed jumped, 415-264,982. The screen's chat scrolled faster than her nervous fingers could read. She's lying. Typical entitlement. Why's she even there? The internet had already picked its villain. Nandi's pulse tapped behind her ear. She could feel it sinking with the soft thrum of the APU outside. The air smelled metallic, now recirculated tension. The curtain parted again. The supervisor returned, followed by the captain himself. Tall, efficient, male authority personified. "What seems to be the issue?" His voice carried weight, like something rehearsed in boardrooms. "This passenger's claiming business class," the attendant said. "System shows her name, but there might be a booking mismatch." The captain nodded without looking at Nandi. "We can't delay departure over administrative confusion. Let's handle this quickly." "I'd prefer you look at my ticket before deciding," Nandi said. That made him pause, finally turning. "Of course, but let's stay calm, all right? No need to get emotional." There it was, the soft sexism of tone management. Her voice, steady as glass. "I'm calm, Captain. Perhaps you mistake clarity for emotion." Someone in row 1 laughed under their breath. The captain's jaw tightened. "Ma'am, if you continue raising your voice, I'm speaking the same volume as you." It was true exact decibels, but different resonance. His baritone authority, her musical defiance. The room heard tone, not truth. The college girl's stream caught the moment perfectly. Captain's hand raised slightly, the woman sitting still as stone. The caption read, "This is getting crazy. She's arguing with the pilot number first-class drama." 7,412 viewers. "Captain," the supervisor said quietly, "Tower's asking for update. If we don't depart in the next 3 minutes, we lose slot." He tapped his watch. "Then let's move her until it's sorted." Nandi inhaled. "I've already been moved enough, Captain. By assumption, by accent, by tone, I won't move again." He studied her. That pause before dismissal, the one used by people, sure, they'll be vindicated later. "I suggest you cooperate," he said. She tilted her head, faint smile cutting through the tension. "You train voices, Captain," she said softly. "I train meanings." He frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" But before she could answer, the intercom interrupted. "Captain to cockpit. Ground control requesting clearance update." He sighed, pivoted toward the galley. "Stay put for now," he ordered the crew. The curtain closed behind him, leaving silence, taut and humming. The attendant muttered, "I'll get security ready, just in case." Nandi sat back, hands still folded. The plane's hum seemed louder now, like a throat clearing before a sentence that might change everything. Outside, rain dotted the window in quick percussion, each drop a countdown. And somewhere beyond the closed curtain, someone whispered into their mic, "She's about to be removed." The livestream viewer count crossed 10,000. The engine spooled up, impatient, unaware that justice was boarding too, just not yet seated. Silence returned like an exhausted tide. The curtain stayed closed. The captain was gone. Nandi exhaled, a slow, deliberate breath. Her chest lifted once, twice, then stilled. The paper boarding pass on her lap had softened from the heat of her hands. The lights dimmed slightly, the cabin preparing for departure it wasn't yet allowed to make. She could feel every hum, every mechanical sigh of the aircraft as though it were inside her ribs. Through the window, the rain had turned into a steady curtain, droplets racing each other down the glass. Beyond it, the tarmac lights blurred into gold threads. For the first time since boarding, no one spoke to her. She was visible and invisible at once, an object of collective attention but excluded from every gaze. Her mother's voice came back to her, not as sound, but rhythm. Hold your voice like a bridge. Let it carry you over small minds. The hum of the engines rose, then dropped again, a frustrated rhythm. Nandi matched her breathing to it. Her fingers moved unconsciously to her throat, to the place where her accent lived, where her words were shaped before being judged. The gesture steadied her. "Excuse me," someone whispered. The voice came from across the aisle, a young woman, maybe late 20s, brown skin, dark eyes, the trace of a Latin American accent, softening her English. "I saw your ticket," she said. "It definitely said business." Nandi turned to her. For a heartbeat, their eyes met recognition between strangers who both knew the quiet weight of being second-guessed. "Thank you," Nandi said. The woman hesitated. "They do this sometimes. They think accents mean mistakes." Nandi gave a small nod. "They're not used to voices that travel." The woman's lips pressed together, half smile, half grief. "I know." She pulled her blanket tighter, retreating to her corner, but the connection remained like a warm line of light across the aisle. The mother and boy in 4A were watching again. The boy gave a timid wave. Nandi lifted her fingers, just barely, in reply. Another sound, a cough, a shuffle, a whispered argument between the two men in row 2 reminded her that the world was still watching, waiting for something to break. Instead, she looked down at her phone. A notification banner scrolled across the screen. "Globalcom team chat? Landing in NYC early for strategy session?" She swiped it away before anyone could see. A memory surfaced, her first flight to New York 5 years ago. The same hesitation from an attendant who doubted her upgrade. The same smile that wasn't a smile. But that time, she'd laughed it off. She'd been too young to know that laughter could be surrender. Now, she just sat. The restraint felt heavier, but more honest. The intercom clicked once. The same male voice, the captain's, filtered through static. "Crew, please stand by for further instruction. We're resolving a passenger issue." The phrasing flattened her existence into a problem. Passenger issue. 2 words that erased her name, her face, her voice. She looked again at her reflection in the window, blurred by rain, divided by streaks of light. Behind that reflection, she could see the world moving. Baggage carts, lights blinking, workers in reflective vests. People who would never know this conversation but had lived versions of it their whole lives. The attendant returned briefly, voice clipped. "We're still waiting on verification, ma'am. Please, be patient." Nandi smiled faintly. "I've been patient for 30 years. The attendant blinked, unsure if that was sarcasm or truth. As she walked away, Nandi murmured to herself, too quiet for anyone else to hear, "I was speaking English before you learned your first apology." She opened her laptop. The screen's glow spilled over her lap, turning her hands into silhouettes. The logo, Globalcom International, reflected faintly on the glossy wall panel beside her, ghosting itself into the airplane's architecture. For a second, she almost wanted to tell them who she was, to end the farce, to wield her title like a shield. But she didn't. Not yet. The world outside blurred again, motionless, but full of movement. She thought of her mother's lullaby in Igbo, the one that meant, "A bridge holds both shores." Her lips shaped the word silently. The hum of the engines answered. Then, as if to remind her that empathy always has limits, the intercom chimed again. "Ground control warning. Last clearance call in 5 minutes." 5 minutes. The number pressed against her skin like a clock. Nandi closed her laptop, folded her hands once more, and waited a woman with 1,000 bridges in her throat, holding them all against the coming storm. The rain had slowed, the wipers outside sweeping lazy arcs across the cockpit glass. The intercom crackled again, the captain's voice taut with irritation. "Cabin crew, status update. We need resolution in 2 minutes." Resolution. The word carried more threat than intention. The attendant appeared once more, clipboard in hand, her patience newly ironed. "Miss Okoye, we need you to step aside while we verify payment through the system." Nandi looked up slowly. The restraint in her eyes had turned crystalline, beautiful, dangerous. "No," she said. "You'll verify it right here." The attendant blinked. "Ma'am, please don't make this harder than—" "I won't," Nandi said. "I'll make it clearer." She reached down, opened her carry-on fully for the first time. The silver laptop slid out, light reflecting off its surface like a flare. The Globalcom International decal caught the LED cabin glow, casting a small mirrored world across her fingers. The cabin grew quieter. A few phones tilted subtly, recording again. The live stream that had been hovering at 10,000 viewers jumped, notifications stacking like confetti. She opened the screen with slow precision. A presentation slide glowed against the seatback in front of her. Cross-Cultural Crisis Communication. Globalcom International New York HQ. The attendant frowned. "Defensive. I don't understand." "You wouldn't need to," Nandi said softly. "You're not on this account." Then, calmly, "I'm Nandi Okoye, Global Communications Advisor. My team oversees this airline's media relations from New York." The words moved through the cabin like weather, invisible at first, then undeniable. The captain, who had stepped halfway down the aisle, stopped mid-stride. "Excuse me?" She turned the laptop so the title slide faced him. Her name was printed there, sharp, serifed, corporate. Below it, Advisory Consultant, Globalcom, Continental Aviation Partnership Initiative. Someone in row 2 muttered, "Holy shit." The college girl's live stream zoomed in. The chat exploded. "Wait, she works for them? Is this real? Oh my God, Globalcom. She's their PR boss." 20,000 viewers. Nandi held the captain's gaze. Her voice didn't rise. It deepened. "So before you call security to remove me from the seat my company paid for, you might want to contact your own communications director. He reports to my division." The attendant's mouth opened, closed, the sound lost somewhere between shock and apology. I wasn't aware." "No," Nandi said. "You weren't." The captain's face shifted through the 5 visible stages of regret, denial, irritation, calculation, dread, and something dangerously close to awe. He tried to recover authority. "You understand, Miss Okoye. Our crew follows protocol for everyone." "Protocol is not the problem, Captain," she replied. "Perception is." He hesitated, realizing he was now in the middle of a live corporate PR crisis with 20 phones aimed at him. From the intercom, the ground crew's voice sliced in again. "Captain, tower requests update. You're 3 minutes past slot." He didn't answer. His jaw worked silently. Nandi closed the laptop halfway, the hinge clicking like a verdict. "Perhaps," she said, "this flight should be delayed, just long enough for your company to decide which narrative it prefers, discrimination or accountability." The attendant swallowed. "Miss Okoye, Please, I didn't mean. I know, Nandi interrupted gently. That's how it always starts. The woman across the aisle, the one who'd mocked her earlier, shifted uncomfortably, as if her seat had become too hot. No one spoke after that. Even the engine seemed to idle lower, unsure whether to proceed. On the live stream, a flood of hearts filled the comment section. Viewers were screenshotting, sharing, hashtagging, number accent equality, number Nandi Okoye, number corporate irony. Nandi reopened her laptop just enough to type one line into an internal chat window. Incident in flight. Crew conduct audit recommended immediately. Then she closed it again. The captain cleared his throat. We'll, await instructions from operations before takeoff. Good idea, she said. She leaned back, the calm around her no longer defensive but gravitational. For the first time, silence didn't isolate her, it orbited her. Outside, the rain stopped. Inside, 20,000 people watched through their screens as one woman's accent turned into authority. And in the pause before the next announcement, Nandi whispered to herself, almost a prayer, almost a promise. A voice is a bridge. You just needed to learn how to cross. The air inside the cabin had changed heavier, electrical. The revelation had spread like a pulse through metal and fabric. You could almost feel the aircraft itself listening. The captain disappeared behind the curtain again, headset pressed to his ear. The attendants exchanged glances that weren't whispers, but wordless panic. Nandi sat still. Power wasn't loud. It was patience weaponized. Her phone buzzed a notification from the company group chat. Globalcom crisis feed. Viral incident on board Flight 927. Live monitoring initiated. Another message followed, this one from a contact labeled M. Suarez, Corporate Affairs Director. We're watching. Stay composed. Stay composed. The irony made her smile. She'd been composed since the insult at boarding. The problem was never her composure. It was everyone else's discomfort with it. If we don't clear this in 2 minutes, we lose our takeoff slot, a voice hissed from the flight deck. 2 minutes, the attendant repeated, as if the number itself could make the situation less absurd. Phones were out everywhere now, little constellations of glass catching the story. The live stream count soared past 45,000, the comments multiplying faster than comprehension. She's the advisor for the airline's parent company? Captain screwed. They better not take off without apologizing. One attendant crouched by the galley, whispering into her radio. Operations is calling corporate. They want instructions. Another muttered, if she's really from HQ, this could go bad. It already had. From somewhere mid-cabin, a passenger asked, So, are we still flying? No one answered. The captain reappeared, voice clipped but forcedly polite. Miss Okoye, corporate is aware of your situation. They've asked me to hold the flight pending further communication. Good choice, she said. His jaw clenched. We have procedures for these things. Yes, Nandi said. You do. And they fail exactly like this, politely. He hesitated, caught between apology and protocol. Would you like to move to a private space while we sort this? No, she said simply. I'll stay where I am. Outside, the rain had turned silver in the runway lights. A line of planes waited for clearance steel patience, stretching into the night. The intercom clicked. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a short delay due to an internal systems check. Please remain seated. Nandi looked up. Internal systems check. The phrasing amused her so accurate it hurt. Her phone buzzed again. Another update from HQ. Globalcom internal. Public reaction climbing. Crisis audit initiated. Hold statement until review complete. Then, a second message, this time from a PR assistant she barely remembered hiring. Someone from the airline's comms team just said, Accent miscommunication isn't discrimination. It's trending. Nandi closed her eyes for a long second. That sentence would burn across headlines before dawn. She opened them again. The captain was watching her now. Something uneasy behind his eyes, fear of the kind that comes from realizing you've been recorded in history, not just video. Captain, she said quietly, You don't need to fix this for me. He frowned. Then for who? For your company, she said. And for everyone who thinks misunderstanding is harmless. A murmur spread through the cabin. The live stream hit 70,000. Someone whispered, "She's right." The captain nodded once, curt, then disappeared again to his cockpit retreat disguised as duty. For a moment, the cabin was calm, a strange calm, the kind that exists when shame finally overpowers arrogance. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance, a delayed applause. Nandi leaned back, eyes half closed, listening to the engine's idle. The vibration against the floor reminded her of a heartbeat too fast for its own good. She imagined the office in New York now. Screens lighting up, executives scrambling, the same people who once trained others on crisis containment for emerging markets, realizing the irony. Her phone pinged once more. Internal, board chair. Pause all departures until compliance review complete. Statement forthcoming. She exhaled slowly. The words felt like balance. Then the intercom chimed again, sterile and final. All departures temporarily halted. Pending internal audit. Passengers murmured. The woman across the aisle, the one who'd mocked her accent, whispered, "They're grounding flights? Because of this?" Nandi met her eyes. "Because of this," she echoed. And under the hum of lights, she thought, no, because of everything before this. Her laptop rested on her knees, unopened. She didn't need to show another slide. The point had already landed. The camera lights dimmed as phones lowered. Even social media seemed to take a breath. Outside, the rain finally stopped. Inside, the world was still holding its own storm. The plane was officially still. Engines idle, lights humming low, patience thinned to transparency. A voice came through the intercom, the captain's, subdued now. "Ladies and gentlemen, this flight will remain delayed, pending instructions from corporate headquarters. We apologize for the inconvenience." Every syllable was a surrender disguised as professionalism. Passengers exhaled in waves, the sound of tension releasing, not relief. Someone muttered, "They should just let her speak." Nandi opened her eyes. She hadn't realized they'd been closed. The words she'd been collecting inside her chest all this time finally lined up, steady and ready. The attendant approached again, voice small now. "Miss Okoye, you can step off if you'd prefer. We can rebook you or—" "No," Nandi said softly. "I'll stay." The attendant blinked, unsure if that was defiance or grace. "It might be hours, ma'am." "Then let it be hours," Nandi said. "Better a delay than a silence." The woman nodded, confused but relieved, and retreated toward the galley. Nandi looked around the cabin. Dozens of faces avoided her eyes, not out of malice this time, but shame. The live stream lights were fewer now. Viewers had what they came for, drama. But what remained in this small, pressurized room was truth. Across the aisle, the same woman who had mocked her earlier kept twisting her wedding ring. The motion was nervous, human. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she murmured, mostly to herself. Nandi turned to her, voice gentle. "Things only go far when they've gone unseen too long." The woman met her gaze, eyes wet. "I'm sorry." Nandi nodded once. "Thank you." It wasn't forgiveness, it was recognition. Another passenger, the young Latin woman from earlier, leaned forward. "You should say something," she said. "To all of us." Nandi hesitated. "I'm not sure anyone's ready to listen." The woman smiled sadly. "Maybe that's why you have to start." From the intercom again, the captain. "Cabin crew, stand by. We're officially delayed." The phrase lingered in the air, a rare truth. Time itself had been forced to stop until something moral could move. Nandi unbuckled her seatbelt. The click was louder than it should have been, like punctuation. All eyes followed as she stood. The cabin was quiet except for the low mechanical heartbeat beneath their feet. She turned toward the flight attendants at the galley. "I'd like permission to address the cabin." The captain stepped out from behind the curtain. "Miss Okoye, This isn't standard procedure. Neither is prejudice, she replied. He paused, then gestured faintly. Go ahead. She moved into the narrow aisle, stopping halfway. The light from the overhead bins painted a soft halo on her shoulders. Nandi looked at the passengers, the sea of eyes that had once judged, now waiting. My voice, she began, wasn't built for anger. It was built for distance. Every vowel you heard came from a continent that raised me to believe language connects before it divides. A hush, the kind that feels like listening, not silence. I came here for work. The seat I bought, I earned. But I stayed quiet for too long because I thought dignity meant patience. She glanced toward the captain, then the attendant, then the woman with the ring. It doesn't. Dignity means telling the truth without fear. Her tone was calm, melodic, each word measured, deliberate. A bridge laid plank by plank. Justice, she said, isn't revenge. It's recognition. The Latin woman exhaled audibly. The mother in 4A wiped her eyes. The boy whispered, "She sounds like the teacher in the movies." The captain bowed his head slightly, the first hint of humility. Nandi smiled, just barely. I won't file a complaint tonight. Not yet. I'd rather this be remembered as a conversation that finally started. Then, she looked at the attendant. May I have your mic? The attendant hesitated, then handed it over. Nandi turned to the cabin once more, thumb brushing the small switch. Let's make sure the next flight leaves with less fear on board. She clicked the mic on. The soft feedback filled the air, a signal of truth amplified. Every face turned toward her, the air suddenly bright with expectation. Outside, lightning flickered silently over the runway, not a threat, but illumination. The bridge was ready, and Nandi was about to speak. The soft hum of the PA system filled the cabin as Nandi lifted the microphone. The coiled wire trembled slightly in her hand, its shape like a heartbeat frozen in midair. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the mirrored bulkhead, poised, unyielding, and astonishingly calm. Good evening, she began, her voice resonant through the speakers. It wasn't loud, but it carried every syllable landing with gravity. A few heads turned. Others pretended to look out the windows, as if pretending could make them invisible. I was told, she said, to speak English before claiming my seat. The air in the cabin changed. Everyone knew the line. It had been replayed, captioned, looped online for hours. Now they were hearing it from the woman herself. I am speaking English now, she continued, her accent rich and melodic. The same English I used to train your New York PR team on crisis communication. The captain froze near the galley. The attendant's eyes filled, her hands tightening around the drink cart. Nandi turned slightly, her gaze sweeping the rows, not accusing, but gathering. I've heard my accent mocked in boardrooms, classrooms, airports, and interviews, she said. Everywhere, someone decided that clarity belonged to a single kind of voice. The mic hissed softly, a living thing breathing with her. My accent, she said slowly, is not a flaw. It is proof that the world is bigger than your assumptions. The words fell like measured drops of rain, steady, cleansing. Outside, a flash of lightning lit the windows. For one instant, every face inside the cabin was illuminated. Shame, awe, recognition. A murmur started from the back, a passenger clapping once, hesitant, then another. The sound grew, quiet but persistent, like dignity finding rhythm. Nandi didn't smile. She didn't need to. Behind her, one of the flight attendants was crying quietly, whispering, I'm sorry. I really am. Nandi lowered the mic slightly and said, I believe you. At that same moment, her phone buzzed in the seat pocket. A message preview flashed. Globalcom HQ statement release. Effective immediately. Continental Aviation will initiate a full internal audit on linguistic and racial bias across all divisions. The live broadcast caught it, the screen behind the girl in row 5 showing the update in real time. Number accent equality shot past 100,000 mentions. Justice, in pixels and sound waves, was spreading faster than the engines could spin. The captain stepped forward. "Miss Okoye," he said quietly, "on behalf of this crew, we." She lifted her hand. "Not yet." He fell silent. Nandi turned back to the mic. "You see," she said, "this isn't about one flight or one seat. It's about how quickly we turn language into a border." Her voice softened. "And how easily we forget that listening is an act of courage." She let that line rest, a deliberate pause, calibrated for resonance. The kind of silence that doesn't ask for applause, only reflection. Then, gently, she said, "If you hear my accent and think it's strange, that's all right. It only means your world just got a little larger." The cabin seemed to exhale all at once. Even the engines hummed differently, lower, softer, as if the plane itself was humbled. Nandi handed the mic back to the attendant. "Thank you for listening," she said. The woman's hand trembled as she took it. "No," she whispered. "Thank you for speaking." From the intercom, the captain's voice returned, quieter than it had been all night. "Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for your patience. Operations has cleared this flight for departure." But no one moved. The moment was still too sacred to end. As Nandi returned to her seat, the boy in 4A said, "You sounded like my teacher." She smiled. "Then maybe you'll remember this lesson." Outside, the lightning faded. Inside, the only thing left was silence, not the silence of judgment, but of listening. And for the first time that night, Nandi's voice didn't echo alone. It rested safely in the air it had once been denied. The cabin lights dimmed. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving only thin streaks of rain that glistened like nerves across the window. Nandi sat still, palms open on her knees, the hum of the engines filling the quiet like a heartbeat. The attendant approached again, hesitant. Her mascara had smudged, her uniform creased in places that no longer mattered. "Miss Okoye," she said softly, "may I sit?" Nandi nodded. The woman lowered herself into the empty seat across from her, the same one where a stranger had laughed earlier. For a moment, they just breathed the same recycled air. "I need to say something," the attendant whispered. "Not for the cameras. Just between us." Nandi turned slightly, the light catching her face in gentle gold. "Go ahead." The attendant's hands twisted around her name badge until it turned backward. "When I first trained," she began, voice shaking, "I had a southern accent, thick. My instructors mocked me for it. Said it sounded unprofessional, that no one would trust a safety announcement from a girl who sounded like she'd come off a farm." Nandi's chest tightened. "So I practiced for months," the attendant said. "Watched news anchors, mimicked their vowels, erased every trace of where I came from. I got promoted for it. And somewhere along the way," she paused, voice breaking, "I started doing to others what they did to me." Silence settled between them, not cold, but heavy with recognition. Nandi's eyes softened. "Then you know what it costs," she said quietly, "to survive by editing yourself." The woman nodded, tears spilling now. "I didn't even realize I was policing others. It just felt safe, like I finally belonged." "And today?" Nandi asked. "Today," the attendant said, "I saw myself 30 years ago, and I hated it." Nandi reached across the small aisle, laid a hand over hers, a bridge of skin and forgiveness. "Then learn to sound like yourself again." The attendant let out a small, broken laugh, the kind that comes right after release. "I don't even remember what that sounds like." "You will," Nandi said. "Voices have memory." The intercom cracked softly. A new voice. Corporate. Unfamiliar. "Attention all passengers. Continental Aviation has issued a temporary ground hold for all active flights, while compliance reviews are underway. We apologize for the delay." A collective murmur rippled through the cabin. Even those half asleep stirred the gravity of something larger than one plane settling in. The attendant looked up. "They actually did it." Nandi nodded. Systems only change when they're forced to listen. From somewhere near the front, the captain's voice added quietly, "Ladies and gentlemen, we'll remain on standby until further notice." No one complained, not a single sigh of impatience. The Latin woman across the aisle smiled faintly. "I guess that's the sound of progress, nothing moving, but everything changing." Nandi chuckled under her breath. Sometimes stillness is revolution. They all sat like that, a cabin of strangers now bound by the lesson of one voice. The attendant dabbed her eyes, stood, then hesitated. "Would it be all right," she asked, "if I made the next announcement?" Nandi tilted her head. "Go ahead." The woman picked up the mic, hands trembling. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her natural drawl creeping gently into the words, "thank you for your patience. We'll be departing once clearance is confirmed. In the meantime, thank you for your understanding." Her accent real, round, unapologetic filled the cabin. Someone clapped, then another. Nandi smiled, eyes wet. The bridge was holding. As the attendant hung up the mic, she whispered, "Feels strange, but good." "Truth often does," Nandi said. Outside, the runway lights shimmered in long, parallel lines, like two shores of a bridge finally connected. And for the first time all night, the plane didn't feel trapped on the ground. It felt ready. The night had turned clear. Clouds broke apart into soft fragments over the runway as the engines hummed to life again, steady and unhurried. Passengers were quiet, the kind of quiet that means something had shifted. The air itself felt changed, purified by everything it had carried. Nandi sat by the window, watching the lights slide across the tarmac like slow comets. The attendant from earlier passed by, checked on her gently, then placed a cup of warm tea on the armrest without a word. "Thank you," Nandi said. The woman smiled, voice soft but firm in her true accent. "Safe travels, ma'am." The words landed like grace. As the plane began to taxi, Nandi leaned her head back against the seat. She felt the hum beneath her, not just the machine's rhythm, but something older, human, ancestral. Her phone buzzed once. A message from M. Suarez, Corporate Affairs Director. "Audit confirmed. Policy to be revised under GlobalCom guidance. Thank you for leading with dignity." She typed back only one word: listening. It wasn't victory. It was acknowledgement. The cabin lights dimmed further for takeoff. Shadows softened. The woman across the aisle, the one who'd mocked her first, gathered the courage to look over. "I hope you know," she whispered. "I was wrong." Nandi nodded. "You learned." Tears glimmered in the woman's eyes. "I'm still learning." "That's all any of us can do," Nandi said. Outside, the plane's nose lifted. The world tilted backward, gravity surrendering for a moment. Lights below blurred into rivers of gold. She closed her eyes. Behind her eyelids, she saw Lagos streets humming with voices, languages colliding like joyful storms. Her mother at the kitchen window, humming that lullaby. "A bridge holds both shores," the lyric meant. Her hand reached for her phone. She scrolled to an old recording, her mother's voice, warm and unpolished, singing in Igbo. Nandi slipped her earbud in, pressed play. The melody filled her. Soft, unguarded, true. No accent, no correction, just belonging. The engines roared, and she smiled, not from pride, but release. The attendant passed by again, saw the glint of tears on Nandi's cheek, and didn't ask. She simply whispered, "Beautiful song." "It's home," Nandi replied. Through the thin window glass, dawn was starting to seep at the edge of the horizon, a faint line of fire breaking through cloud. Somewhere in that quiet light, she heard the echo of her own words returning to her. "My accent is proof that the world is bigger than your assumptions. Only now," she added silently, "and kinder than your fears." The plane leveled off. The captain spoke over the intercom, his tone careful, humbled. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've reached cruising altitude. On behalf of the crew, we thank you for your patience and for reminding us what listening means. A ripple of warmth passed through the cabin, a sigh, a shared peace. Nandi turned her face toward the window. Her reflection looked back at her composed, human, no longer fighting for space in the sound around her. She whispered almost to herself, "For once, they listened not to correct my accent, but to understand my words." Outside, the sunlight struck the wing, and for a moment, the whole plane gleamed like a bridge suspended in the sky. Justice didn't roar. It glowed. Quiet. Earned. Complete.